Let's talk about the fifth season by N.K. Jemisin. So look, there's two ways you could introduce this book, and one is the setup and the world. So there's a world racked by geological problems, lots of fault lines, volcanoes, etc. And then a fifth season, disaster season, comes upon the land, and there's ashfall, volcanic activity, and the thing is, it seems to be the worst one yet. It seems to be the worst one ever. And we're learning how it came to happen and why it happened, and we're learning about how a minority group of basically magic users can manipulate geological activity, and obviously you think, well, that means they can stop or increase geological activity. But they're a somewhat hated minority, and there's racial overtones. They have to be controlled by the government. The other way to introduce this is what a lot of people say, which is to emphasise the fact this is a 3-viewpoint book at different points in the timeline of that set of events, and that one of those viewpoints is very famously a second-person viewpoint. You see this, you do this, etc. The very first lines are, "You are she is you are Esun." Remember, you start like that. That's the very first lines of the proper first chapter after the prologue material. So add those two together, and you can tell from the structural decisions being made that there is a mystery here, and the nature of the viewpoints is meant to draw you in and make us puzzle on the mystery and try to unfold it and connect all the information we're getting together. And basically, it's a very good book. That's the biggest thing to say, is it's a very good book. The structure and the plot are effective and they're fascinating. I wanted to know more. It was once I got started, I think I literally did one of those things where I read a chapter or two and then put it down for a while. Not because I didn't like it, but because other stuff was going on. But when I got back to it, I read it very quickly. It was very fun. The writing, though rarely overwhelmingly beautiful, is very rhythmic. It's very sonorous. It's very lovely, very easy to read on the whole. I like the world building. It definitely has a distinctive authorial voice. Jemisin has a strong authorial voice. The world building was fun. I liked it a lot. Even if it's not really a world building book, it's not one where you think the biggest thing going on here is an author who is thinking about world building. But she does a really good job of it on the whole. I really enjoyed the world of the Sanse, or Sans. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. The racial discussion, for what it's worth, if you're interested. The origins, Orogines, the origins or Orogenes or whatever. I think origins probably. The stone sorcerers they're treated as genetically inferior or dangerous slave caste who have to be basically enslaved and controlled by the government, and they get lots of privileges doing that. So they are a privileged slave caste, relatively speaking, but they are nonetheless not allowed to live free. But then there are dangers associated with the origins, and there's a nuanced and thoughtful discussion about that, and a very powerful discussion, a very compelling discussion about what is essentially a racial discussion, obviously, ultimately, and the fact that the fifth season, the world of Sans, is chiefly a sort of African world. By that I mean in terms of the presentation of ethnicity, is intentional, and is that may or may not interest different people, but if you are interested, it is there, and it is a major component of the book. The only caveats I have are twofold. One, and it's not really germane to the main point of, is this book good? This book is very good. But it is worth saying this is part of a trilogy, and the mystery is one that you only really solve reading the trilogy. And therefore, it feels to me like it is a problem that the second and third books in the trilogy are just okay. Some people have a similar issue with Hyperion, where Hyperion is amazing. Lots of people also think the Fall of Hyperion is very good, but fewer people like the Endymion duology. And you might say that, whether or not that's fair, a similar thing applies here, that you read this book, you love it, but to find out all the mysteries, you're going to have to read 2 average books. I still enjoy the other books, but, whatever. Just a warning. 2, this is an emotionally intense and sometimes quite difficult book to read. It involves themes of domestic violence and sexual abuse, obviously the slavery stuff. It has stuff about social breakdown and disaster, and it does make the book somewhat wearing at points to read, for me at least. I wouldn't say that's a big disqualifier, but it's definitely a bear in mind that if you're thinking, can I get a kind of exciting adventure book that helps me to escape, this isn't it. So if you have read this book, what did you think about it? What was your experience of the book? How did you think it dealt with those themes? And generally questions around that. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments. Until next time.